All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining to our external guests from the Hills Football family. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us. For those that haven't met me before, my name is Chris Codling. I'm the Referee Administration Officer for Hills Football. And I'm not going to talk too much other than ask some questions. The man we're all here to see tonight is our special guest, ALeague Assistant Referee, Brad Wright. Brad, thank you for joining us and giving up your Monday evening.
No worries.
So tonight, guys, we're going to hear from Brad all about his career. Please, I welcome you to ask any questions. Feel free to put them in the chat, and I will ask them at the end of the session. Alternatively, at the end of the session, I will invite people for a short period of time to turn their camera on and unmute themselves, and so they can speak and ask Brad a question. But if we don't have anyone else joining, which it doesn't look like we do, as I said, Brad, thanks for joining us. But I think the most logical place to start tonight is where it all started. Where did your involvement with football start? Not necessarily as a referee, and how old were you then?
Yeah, so my first involvement was when I was quite young, at about 4.5. I started playing football with my brother in the Macarthur region. Yeah, I think that really is where it all began. 4.5, started playing. That's where the passion started. I guess, you do it for fun. Many years of playing. Yeah, so I played up until I was about 13 in Macarthur. And then that's when my brother and I played reps. We ended up playing NPL at Mount Druitt for about 6 years. We played futsal as well. Played futsal in the summer, and then in the winter played football. We ended up playing for Campbelltown City Quake in our prime, attending many tournaments and many national tournaments, and eventually winning one of them. But that's how it all started. Playing is where it began.
Yeah, wow. That's very obviously kept you busy in your younger years. And obviously having refereed you at many a tournament, I can attest to the ability that you had as a player. But here we are on the better end of the deal, and well on his way as a very highly decorated match official in Australia. I suppose, it would be interesting to know when you first got that kind of bug, or when you got that first interest as a referee. As you said, you played for quite a long time at various levels. When did you first decide you wanted to become a referee? And was there a particular thing that happened, or maybe some advice from someone or something that made you want to take up refereeing?
Well, to be honest, it's not really a special story. I just didn't want to work at McDonald's or work in fast food or anything. And, I really enjoyed, at the time, my soccer. So I was like, I watched my older brother referee. He took it up. So I thought, why not follow in his footsteps? He's earning some money doing it. He's doing quite well. So I thought, I'm going to make some pocket money too. I don't want to work in fast food. So that's honestly, it was about the money at first. I just wanted to do that. And I thought, I'm happy to run around and blow a whistle, that's fine. So I guess that's where it began. So we started that, both Cam and I together. We ended up doing our referees course before we were 12, and at that stage 12 was the start of refereeing, and that's where you could referee. So we did the course and waited patiently until we hit the age where we could start doing some minis football, SSG at the time. So 6s, 7s and 8s, and yeah, that's where it really started for us. I remember my first game. Paul Neves, who's on this call, he took me arm around my shoulder and said to me, one day you'll be better than your brother, and look where we are now. But that's where it all started. Yeah,
wow. And we'll thank you to Paul for tuning in tonight. And we will come back to someone like Paul a bit later in this. All right, so you were 12 years old. You started refereeing in Macarthur, just local games, and you continued to play while you were refereeing.
Yeah.
So And I should probably mention, as those that don't know, as you said, your brother Cam, fun fact, is also a twin. If those that know Brad and have seen him out refereeing, no, you're not seeing double. How did you find the balance? Obviously you started playing at a representative level not long after you, or not long after, or just before you started refereeing. Is that right?
Yeah. So started refereeing at 12 and first broke into reps at 13. So it would have been pretty much around the same time.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you find the balance? Because obviously, much like refereeing, playing at a decent level of sport obviously has its commitment as well. How did you manage being able to do both at that time?
Yeah, I think at the time, to be honest, refereeing was just for money. So playing was the priority. I had my goals in playing. Everyone that plays, has a goal of playing for Australia, or playing in the ALeague, or playing overseas, or doing those things, or winning a World Cup. So I think eventually, well, at the start, that was my aspirations. Playing was my, that's what I wanted to do. And referee was just in the background. So I guess on days that I wasn't playing, I would referee. And I guess constantly training, so 2 or 3 nights a week with playing helped with referee fitness as well. So I just think being involved in the game as well, the game understanding and all that kind of stuff helped immensely.
Yeah, okay. And what was it like when you first started as a referee? How did you find it? Do you have any interesting stories from back when you first started blowing the whistles? Obviously there's some people here that are fairly new to our craft. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think like every referee that first begins, I don't think I was the best referee. I don't think I was good even. But I think I come from a really good place in the fact that I watched my older brother referee all the time. I'd been to all the rep games because he was on EDP at the time, which is now our RDP. So I used to go and watch my older brother on the weekends. I used to see, the high level referees right from the start. I used to hear all the parents abusing the referees and yelling. And, I think at that level, there's a bit more, just at stake, with the parents. So I definitely knew what to expect. So I think, although I wasn't good, I kind of, if I did get yelled at or whatever, I kind of knew that, okay, it wasn't at me personally. It was, it's at the referee, it's at the uniform. So I think it was pretty easy for me to go back again next week, even if I didn't have a good time. So yeah, I think it was tough at the start. There was weeks where you didn't really want to go back. Is the money worth it? But I guess the love for the game always pulls through.
Yeah, look, definitely you've got to have that love for the game. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this, and certainly not as long as some of us have. What period or at what point? Because obviously you don't play any longer. At what point did you decide that you wanted to stop playing and focus on refereeing? But also, can you talk leading into that about the pathway? We found out you started refereeing local games at Macarthur for money. When did it become a little bit more serious for you? And what pathway did you take at that point?
Yeah, okay. So I think giving up playing was a pretty big decision. At that stage, I'd been on RDP. I was involved at academy. I'd been to state titles, all that kind of stuff. So I think at that stage, I had been identified. And there was, Rob and John, Rob Newhouse and John Badlove saying, oh, when are you guys, gonna give up playing? That you guys have a future in refereeing. And so I think eventually we stopped enjoying playing, my brother and I, and we decided that, let's pursue refereeing. Maybe there is a pathway for us. We enjoy our refereeing. We need a break from playing. Maybe we'll come back later on. but let's give it a go. Let's follow refereeing, and honestly, it's been the greatest decision I've ever made in terms of football. So yeah, that was the decision to give up. But as you said, in terms of pathway, I think everyone starts where we are now at our local branch, gets opportunities to go to tournaments and stuff every now and then. Once they develop RDP, comes on the table. State titles, and I think state titles for me, when I first went to state titles, I wasn't fully invested in refereeing at that time. I was 16 at the time, so I was still playing. I ended up going to Griffith, and that's where I met KGJ and a few. I went with Jason Robbins, and I went with a few other coaches. And honestly, I wasn't really invested in refereeing. I wasn't even supposed to go. I was just an injury, fill-in for someone who was supposed to go. So I wasn't even supposed to be there, and I ended up having a really good tournament. I ranked first. So I guess that's an eye opener as well. Even though I wasn't fully invested at it, it was, hey, I might be all right at this. If playing doesn't work out, I can come back. And I guess from there you get identified even more, to which I opened up the Football New South Wales Academy, which Rob Neuenhouse ran, with the help from KGJ and also Carney Robinson. So that was also so crucial early in my career. I would have been 16, 17 at the time doing that. And I think that really doing the technical sessions monthly, the fitness sessions, the practical sessions out on the pitch, that was massive. And that gave me a lot of exposure as well. Through the academy came nationals. I was nominated for nationals with my brother as well. We both did very well, and that gives you a lot of exposure to FFA. I ended up ranking first in that one as well, which I think that was the big, I could actually make it moment for me. It was the big moment that I went, hold on, I really need to think about what I'm doing. Do I want to continue playing at NPL level, or could I really make a career out of refereeing? And at that stage, I was loving it. I was refereeing the best of the best from all around Australia, and I think that really opened up my eyes. That was my moment. And I guess from there opened up the National Training Centre Challenge, which is another national tournament for under 15s. And then that opens up the national talent pool, the access to the National Youth League as well. And even back at State League, getting onto panels like the EDG, I think that's another recognition of talent as well. And that was also, doing monthly technical sessions and practical sessions, and being accountable for your training and assignments, off the pitch as well. I think that was massive. I think through every opportunity, more doors open, and I think it's all about trying to go into as many doors as possible, and taking every opportunity, taking every chance. From National Youth League, that's the FFA are really looking at you. You can really make it from National Youth League. A lot of the times the pathway is back into NPL and doing first grade, and really getting a bit of experience there. But I was lucky enough to go straight from essentially into the ALeague when the opportunity presented itself for me and the stars aligned, and I was selected from there. But it doesn't happen very often. I was very, very lucky at the time. So yeah, I think that was a bit of my pathway.
Yeah, wow. And yeah, some great achievements along the way there, and it sounds like it all started coming together, albeit bit by bit, but at a young age. And again, talking about how you guys were quite good footballers, both your brother and yourself.
Arguably.
Oh, look, but it's interesting that you were able to achieve quite a lot of that while you were still balancing your playing. So it does go to show that there is a bit of I don't know if stigma is the right word, but that, you need to pick one or the other very early on, and that's it. But obviously with you, you're an example. That's not the case at all. That's excellent. So obviously, as you said, you finally hit the A-League. So you've been an A-League assistant referee now for 2 years. Is that right? You're going into your third season?
Yeah, going into the third season.
Yeah, all right. And how, I'll talk about the A-League just, in the beginning here for a little bit. How did you find that? Because obviously you're making your debut whilst we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so, obviously they have what's called the bubble, much like everyone's seen with the rugby league and stuff like that. How have you found that? Because my next question was, what is a typical week you as an A-League match official? You haven't experienced the typical week yet, have you?
I hate to stop you, but I did experience a bit of A-League before the pandemic hit. So wow. I did get the full experience. My first season was a bit before the pandemic hit, so I had a bit of experience. So I've got both sides of
oh, good. Okay.
A full stadium versus 0 spectators whatsoever, and like dead silence, hearing everything that a manager says to their players, and hearing every sound of every kick, every instruction from a goalkeeper down all the way the other end, the echo in an empty stadium. Bank West, not a single spectator. It's an eerie feeling.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go. I thought when I thought I'd done all my homework, and I learned something tonight.
That's okay.
So let's talk about pre-pandemic then. What does a week or the lead up to an A-League appointment look like for you? How far out do you get the appointment, and then what do you have to go through in that lead up?
Yeah, so about 2 weeks before we get the appointment sent out, so you've got a bit of time to prepare. If it's your first game, I got a phone call from Matthew Cheeseman saying, "Look, we're looking at putting you on this game, so you've been patient, you've waited. Now's your turn. We're going to put you on this game. It's coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. You've got time to prepare mentally and physically, and do your thing." But I think an average lead up to an A-League game starts mentally 2 weeks before. But if you've got a game that weekend, that's not what you're thinking about. So generally, it's a week before. So mental and physical starts on the Monday, assuming the appointments come out on a Sunday. But for me, a typical week in terms of physical is I like to have a gym session, so a strength session on the Monday night. That's also when we would have clips sent out to both the A-League and W League panel. So we would have clips to look at, quizzes to look at throughout the week, and by Friday they'd want a response. So that was always keeping us mentally active as well. Tuesday was our high intensity group training session. So we would do that on an athletics track and a field on the inside of that. Wednesday, State League would have their training session. If I didn't go to that, I'd either go to the gym or I'd have a coaching call, and that would be a debrief from the weekend before, from the match before, going through incidents, talking about our matches, all that kind of stuff. So we do have time to prepare for our next match, to deal with our previous decisions or whatever, and then work on those for the weekend. Thursday was our second group session. It's a lower intensity due to match day on the weekend. So it's a lower intensity, but it's still one to get us through, focused more on active recovery and sprinting. We'd also get coaching clips from the rest of the panel, would come out on a Thursday night. So after training, we'd all sit around and look at the match clips together and stuff from the previous weekend. Friday is always a slower day. It's always you go for a light walk, a bit of a stretch, light jog if you're really feeling up to it. Something to mimic match day movements as well is always promoted, but it's really a rest day. And that's where you would prepare for your match on Saturday. Match day Saturday is different for every official. I don't think any official are the same in their preparation. A lot of that is mental prep as well. That's very different. But yeah, Saturday's your match day. Sunday, obviously recovery, which is once again, it's basically like your Friday. It's a recovery run, slow walk, slow jog, and we do get access to the footage. So that Sunday is watching our matches back and doing our own personal reflection on the game.
Yeah, excellent. And staying with match day for a minute, along the same lines. So what does a match day look like? I don't know if there's a difference between pandemic and not pandemic, but what does it look like on match day in terms of how early do you arrive to the ground? And, is it really any different to what we would experience on a local grassroots Premier League game? What are the, what's the kind of process that you go through?
I think the biggest difference is the fact that we're going to a stadium or something. So we've got to be there a bit more beforehand. Pre-COVID was 2 hours before the match. COVID, we were having to get there 3 hours before a match. We're having to do daily screening tests. We'd get to the ground, do temperature checks. We'd had a reserve official as well that would also come to the matches, just in case someone didn't pass the tests beforehand. But the 3 hours was to give everyone time to get through all of that. I think sometimes if you have to travel for a game, if you're going interstate, you've got to catch planes, so that changes the dynamic a bit in terms of your match day prep.
And do you normally, if you don't mind me asking, if you're going interstate, I'm not sure how many. Have you had many matches interstate yourself?
I haven't yet. No.
Okay.
Pretty much everyone else has.
Is it a like a normal practice that they'll fly out day of match? Is that normally how it works?
Really, it's up to your preference most of the time. They're pretty flexible. Some referees like to go the night before. If they've got an afternoon or midday game, they'll go the night before and then fly home after the game. Some will fly in the morning of. It just whatever works for them, because most of these referees do work during the week as well. So some aren't able to get out on a Friday night. So they do go a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning or whatever works for them, really. So
yeah. And so obviously, as you said, you're at the ground fairly early. What's the kind of process once you get there? You've said during the pandemic you've got the testing and stuff, but obviously we've got the added dynamic now of VAR as well.
Yeah.
So can you talk us through a little bit about what that kind of looks like?
So arrival 3 hours beforehand or whatever. We kind of just, if we haven't traveled together, we'll check in with everyone and see how everyone's going. Just have a bit of a chat and relax, because you do have plenty of time before the match, and you kind of don't want to be hyped up, ready to go 2 hours before the game. I think mentally it's draining. So I really think it is a build up. By that time you've already mentally prepared for the game. You've already physically prepared. You're there. You're hydrated. I think personally, I like to snack a bit before, have a Powerade, a banana, and a few snack bars and stuff like that. We do go around, we talk to the players, we talk to the other teams as well, because they also arrive at the same time. They're doing the same thing that we are. So we'll do a pitch inspection as well. We'll go out and walk out in our dress gear and inspect the pitch and have a chat to the players, all that kind of stuff, and get things fixed nice and early if there is issues. And basically just take our time, chat to our match day coach and have a bit of banter or whatever, and from there just start to get ready, get changed, hit the physio table, get a massage, get sorted, and do anything we need to do physically and mentally to prepare. And then about 35 to 30 minutes before the match, we go out for a warm-up.
Okay. And what is there any sort of checks in that pre-match inspection that you need to do in terms of the VAR?
VAR for us only really comes in once we get our comms gear on. So we get our comms vest on, and VAR will then, while we're out warming up, they'll check in with us and just to make sure all the comms are working and they can hear everyone. And that's where we troubleshoot, and we have any issues with our comms there, that's where we sort it. VAR is in a central location away from us, so we don't see any of those guys or girls, but we do chat to them on the day.
Yeah, cool. All right. Excellent. So I think we've we're following. We're kind of at that stage now where you know where we know about where you're at now. Let's talk a little bit about your time on the A-League. Has there been any, and I would imagine your debut was obviously one of them. Has there been any particular highlight moments just in the A-League?
In the A-League specifically,
Yeah.
definitely my debut, as you mentioned, was massive. For me, that was surreal. Like it took days for me to even process like what was happening. It's kind of like at the time it was just happening, and I was just along for the ride. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was definitely a massive thing for me. How did I debut on the A-League? That's something that I just couldn't get my head around. It was massive. Everyone thinks about it. What would you do in that situation? How would you feel? How would you perform? But yeah, I was just along for the ride. But yes, it was amazing. It was something really special for me. I think all of your first couple games are just filled with nerves. You just want to make sure you do everything right. You kind of want to feel like you belong. You've worked hard, but like there's kind of part of you that feels like maybe you don't deserve to be there. But I think after you nail your first few games and you do perform, you go, okay, yeah, this is where I belong. And I think every A-League game is special. Not everyone gets the opportunity to be a part of it, and I think being a part of it is amazing, and it's something that I always hold special. I'm super lucky to be here, so I think every game is special. But I do think you do remember certain decisions, and more often than not, it's the incorrect ones. But yes, I think one of the good memories for me for a good decision would be during the COVID period where we had no spectators. It was my first time using VAR properly, and I had a really tight offside that led to a goal. And you don't have that feeling for the game because when there's a close offside, there's no crowd screaming at you. There's no like big rush of okay decision, or like there's no mental triggers going off like there normally would be with a crowd. It doesn't matter how big that crowd is. There's always that trigger, and I think at the time for me, I didn't have that trigger, and I was hard in mouth the whole time, standing there waiting for it to be cleared. And it did get cleared, and coming in at halftime, going, "Oh my god, I didn't stuff it up." But I wasn't sure how to feel about it because there wasn't that trigger. But I think that's some of those decisions really stick with you. But if I was to talk not A-League, some of my highlights from my career, I'd have to say was one of my experiences. I got to travel overseas and attend the Dallas Cup in America, in Dallas, Texas, and I think that was amazing. That really was. I know I'm doing the right thing. Like I know this is for me. Like I got to travel the world with my brother and referee. Like that is so special. I don't think anyone gets to do that. I've never heard of that, but I think that's one of the really big highlights for me. That was amazing.
Yeah, you're certainly, to my knowledge, there's not any siblings referring together in any code in Australia. I might have stitched you up a little bit here, but let's talk a little bit more about the Dallas Cup because obviously I remember from my involvement with with MacArthur when it we first found out, and obviously we were so proud for you guys to hear that you were going, but obviously it's a partnership that Football New South Wales and the State League branch have with the organisers there. What was the Dallas Cup like? Obviously, tournament, we've got the A-League, and then, like we alluded to, state titles and nationals, and they're all tournaments, that go for about a week long, and that's great. But generally, you're not traveling too far. As you said, this is to the other side of the world in a different time zone, with a massive amount of diverse cultural backgrounds, professional players that maybe playing, already. Obviously refereeing with FIFA referees.
Yeah.
You know, it is a massive tournament for those that don't know. Can you talk a little bit about that whole experience?
Yeah, I'd love to. Some background on Dallas Cup. It goes for about a week. It is the biggest youth football tournament over there, and teams come from all over the world to play. There's a massive representation from Mexico. We do get teams from Germany, Spain, Italy, like any country you name it, they were there. I think it's very prestigious over in America for the referees as well. They really have to earn their way, and referees from all over the world were there. We had the big representation from the English FA. They sent a lot of referees as well. We had some referees from Scotland, all over the world, and I think it's a massive international tournament, and being a part of that is amazing. And it's something that, once you do get to be a part of that, it's, nothing compares. I did get the chance to referee with many FIFA referees over there. A lot from New Zealand as well. I was lucky enough to be selected to referee on the final with Matthew Conga for the under-19s, who ended up going to the World Cup a few months after that. So I think that was massive. It's just something that you can't put into words. Like, you're refereeing with one guy, from another country, and then you see him on TV the next day at a World Cup. So I think that's massive. Yeah,
that's incredible. And for those here that know, the usual chaperone from New South Wales is none other than Johnny B, Mr. John Bagler himself. Rumour has it that his driving's pretty ordinary. Can you confirm or deny that?
No, I can't confirm that at all. I think he was fine. He was fine. I think we all took turns at driving, but Badler wasn't the worst.
Oh, goodness me. There you go. All right. So I'm going to backpedal a little bit now. And you mentioned Mr. Paul Neves, who's here with us tonight. Do you have any mentors or coaches that, at different stages in your career that you could really identify that really had an impact? Obviously, everyone experiences different coaching, regardless of where they go. But and the higher they go, you tend to get more and more. Is there anyone or other people that you can kind of pinpoint that I really think they helped me along the way?
So I definitely think that you're a product of your environment. And I think I was very, very lucky to have great support from almost everyone that I interacted with at every level. And that goes for everyone as well. Starting at your local branch, you have people that play such a big role in your early development. And sometimes that's more crucial than anything. And I think Paul Neves is one of those people, that was crucial in my young early development. He was a big support network, as well. Jason Robbins as well, Boyd McGregor, and this is just at local. At RDP and Academy, it's Rob, it's KDJ, it's Carney. It all starts there, and Bowther as well. But I think at every level there is more people than that are supporting you, that are giving you advice. Every refereeing coach you've ever had, whether you have agreed with their advice or you've disagreed with their advice, you take it on board. And I think every person that you interact with throughout your career plays a massive part in your development as a referee. And so you can't just thank one person. I think you have to thank everyone who you've had the opportunity to work with.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent answer, and it's something certainly that I echo into my coaching. You take everything on board, regardless of what you think of it at the time. You digest it, and then you process. This is good. I'm going to keep it. This is not going to work for me. Thanks very much. So I'm going to discard that, and that's obviously very important at all levels, as you said. Do you have any refereeing idols?
Yes, I do.
Everyone
Yes.
knows. Everyone knows I do. So this is more of a personal question for me. But refereeing idols.
My refereeing idols are here actually. Like they're in Australia. They're Australian people. I don't really have any international idols. I think for me, these are real people. These are people you can reach. You know, I think when I first saw this question and I read it, I think my instincts went to Kurt Ams. Kurt Ams is just a phenomenal guy. He's so genuine. The resilience that the guy has is just, it's second to none. And if you're ever lucky enough to hear his story, he has one of the greatest stories of resilience, and that's something that inspires me. And you know, I really admire him for that. As well as his refereeing, I love the way he referees. Just the way he conducts himself on the pitch. You know, just the love he has for the game as well. And I was lucky enough to have him in the middle for my debut. We debuted up in Newcastle, so I had a bit of a drive, bit of a trip up there. And the whole time I was with Kurt, he made me feel special. He made me feel like I belong, you know, with that team. I wasn't just, you know, this young kid, you know, who didn't deserve to be there. Like, I was a key part of the team, and he needed me. He made me feel so special, and I think that's one of the key things that Kurt has. And I'll never forget that. And that's why he's probably my biggest idol. If I can mention a few others as well, I used to ball boy on a few A-League games when I was a lot younger, so I did get a lot of exposure to great referees and great assistant referees. And I think a few of those that really stick in my memory are Scott Edling, Sarah Ho, Alison Flynn, and Alex Glasgow. Seeing them a lot, being on the pitch with them, you know, even though I was just a ball boy or whatever, but being near them, seeing their decisions, you know, just interacting with them as well. You know, after the game, we'd leave at the same time as them, so they were always say hello. You know, they were always friendly, and I think that's you never forget those things, even if you do for face value, you never forget them subconsciously. You know, it's always there. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what a list of names, really, of who's who in Australian refereeing, you know, of all time, but certainly in the last 20 years. That's some real big names there. Coming back to the A-League, and you know, please feel free if you know it's not something that you can answer, but your actual experiences that you've had, have you found any challenges, you know, maybe some particular players, coaches, stuff like that? You know, is there anyone that you can speak about, or maybe a story about them? You know,
I think even though these are like people that you see on TV and like they're really special people, I think everyone's human. And I think that was the biggest thing as well when I first started was seeing all these players that I've watched play for quite a while, and like realizing that they're just another person. You know, they're like you or I. You know, everyone is human. So I think for me that was something that I had to take a bit of time to get used to. But I don't think there's ever been any issues like dealing with anyone or anything like that. I don't think I have any spectacular stories, you know, the wild, crazy stories. But I definitely think that you get to interact with a lot of players and realizing that they are human and, you know, they're normal people. You know, I think that's something that really, I guess, brings you back down to earth a little bit. And I think that makes it special.
Yeah, okay. One particular person I'm going to put, but mainly because, you know, he brought great success to the club that I support. Art Barisha.
I knew he would come up.
He's a character, and you know, regardless of what anyone thinks, it's very unfortunate that we're not going to see him in the A-League this season. How did you find him as a player? How did you find him, particularly off the field? We all see what he's like on the field, right? We've seen, you know, he can be a bit of a madman, and he's got so much passion, and he's a very good footballer. What's he like off the field?
Bessart is probably the most passionate footballer I've ever had the chance to referee. I think on the pitch he has a personality, and off the pitch he has a personality, and I think they're both great. They're both spectacular. I have an immense amount of respect for him. I think he's one of the kindest guys off the pitch as well. From my experience, he's a really, really big family man, and he's great, I think. So
Yeah,
I did have an offside in one of where I called him offside by about a toenail. And on and off the pitch, he was fine. He came up and said to me, how close was it? And I said it was super tight, and that was it. There was no screaming, yelling. He's a professional footballer. At the end of the day, that's their job. So they give everything for it. And I guess off the pitch, they're human beings.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Obviously, no surprises that I support Brisbane, so that's where the basis of that question comes from. I think we've now heard about your experiences on the ALeague, and that's great. Where to from here? And for those in the know, obviously, we know that in terms of refereeing ranks, the next logical step is the FIFA at an international level. But that's not necessarily what I'm asking here. That's obviously one answer you could give. But where do we go from here in terms of your refereeing career? It could be you want to do more matches. You obviously maybe you want to achieve a particular thing. What is it for you?
I think my current goal and what I'm really focusing on at the moment is just performing on matches, not taking anything for granted, and really, I guess, cementing myself. It is the start of my third season, but I still want to perform every second I'm out there. I think that's my biggest drive, to perform, and when I'm done, to say I had a great career, then I didn't regret anything that I did. So I think that my whole career, I've taken every opportunity available. And so I just want to keep on doing that. So just performance on matches is just the big thing for me right now, and getting a bit of experience under my belt. But I guess eventually I do, of course, we want to do international tournaments, get a FIFA badge. And, I guess everyone dreams of going to a World Cup, all the cliche stuff. But I guess at the end of the day, it's everyone's desires, right? But definitely got to keep, those big goals in check with smaller goals, and definitely performance on matches as well. That's just the biggest thing for me performing at the moment.
Yeah, no, very, very, very good answer, and very, very humble as always. And I suppose off the back of that, for those that pay attention to overseas football, and particularly the English Premier League, and any sort of mainstream media, will know that arguably our best referee in the last 10 years at least, Gareth Gillette, has sailed off to the UK. He's obviously going to uni there, and for his his day job. But he's now he's refereeing in the championship still, but he's been promoted to the select group 1 with the PGMOL, so he's now eligible to officiate Premier League matches. And really, he's a trailblazer, right? He's broken barriers that haven't been seen before, and that's a foreign match official being appointed to the English Premier League panel. Is that something you would like to experience in your career? And obviously, FIFA is one thing, and refereeing international club tournaments and international matches, and that's fine. But maybe actually officiating in a foreign league, and more than just a one-off on an exchange, for example.
Yeah. So first of all, massive congratulations to him. What he's done is special. It's amazing, and I do think that it will open up the pathway for other referees to do similar things. I know that one thing that we do quite a lot is have exchanges. Every year we have a few officials go over to England, and we have a few English referees from the PGMOL come over to us and do stuff all around Australia, and referee on our NPL as well, FFA Cup matches as well. So I think I'd love to do that, the exchanges programs. I think in terms of moving over and picking up your whole life and taking it to another country, I think that's a massive decision in itself. Yeah, and that would be different for every person, depending on lifestyle and family circumstances and work, etc. I think at the moment, it's not really on my radar. As I said earlier, I think I just want to perform here at the moment, and get a bit more experience. But I do think once things start to develop, maybe that's a conversation for later. Is that something I want to do? I couldn't give you an answer at the moment, but I definitely think it's a massive thing. So it's not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just up and changing your whole life based on refereeing a sport. We're coming towards the end of my questions. So this one's kind of a two-pronged. Best piece of advice you've ever received, and the best piece of advice that you could give to aspiring referees, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the same advice.
One of the pieces of advice that stuck with me from quite early on, actually, was Boyd McGregor. I remember him at MacArthur meetings always going on about how you're never too good for any game. You're never too good for any game. And he would always talk about, it could be the under 12 Division 7 boys, they're playing a 9 a.m. Sunday game and you don't want to be up for it. You've had a big night on the Saturday and you're a bit tired, you didn't get much sleep. For them, it's a World Cup. They've waited all week. They've had training. They can't wait for their game. And you're never too good for any game. You've got to go out to everything and give your all. And that comes to my second piece of advice. And this is something that my parents would always remind. And this is something that my dad was always huge on. And it was, you never know who's watching. You could go to any game. You could have anyone at your game. You never know who is going to be there. You never know who could be walking past. If your game's recorded, you don't know who's watching a live stream or a video. You just don't know who's watching, and you can't not give it your all, because you just, you're letting yourself down if you're not giving 100% every time you go out there. And then that comes to my third piece of advice is enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, why are you out there? I mean, if I wasn't enjoying it, I don't think I'd be there. And I think that comes from my love of the game. But yeah, those are my three advice. You never know who's watching. You're never too good for any game, and enjoy what you're doing.
Fantastic. Some really, really good advice there from some wise people. And, that's fantastic. Well, to finish off my questions, and this is something that will be consistent across all my Q&A sessions that we're holding. I'm just going to fire off with 5 rapid fire questions. So some quick answers from you would be good. First off, is favorite pre-match meal?
I love a good pasta.
A favourite amongst the refereeing fraternity. Favourite football team?
I don't really support anyone, but I do appreciate good football. So I do enjoy watching Bayern Munich play.
Okay, interesting. Outside of COVID, of course, dream holiday destination?
Anywhere with sunshine and a beach, I think. Second to that would be Japan. I've always wanted to go to Japan.
Yeah, wow, that's excellent. You're obviously a sporty type of person. So outside of football, what's your favourite type of sport? So watch or play?
Well, I guess it's basically the same thing, but futsal is my absolute love. That would be my favourite other sport. If not, I really enjoy beach volleyball.
Okay, there you go. No, for those listening, football is a real sport, so we'll take his first answer. And finally, what would be your dream job?
How good would be playing video games for a living? I think for me, that's ultimate. I'd love to just sit at home, play Xbox or PC all day and get paid for it.
Yeah, that's excellent. Some really good answers there. That brings an end to my question. So I'm happy now for the next few minutes or so to open up to the floor. So if you want to ask a question from the audience, guys, please pop your camera on, and then you can unmute yourself when invited. Otherwise, you can use the chat feature. Please send through a question in the chat, and we can we can ask Brad and pick his mind.
Jim Molan here. Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, Jimmy, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Just a couple of little questions. Brad, in relation to player management, how much time do you spend before a game getting to know the players that you're refereeing in relation to their temperament, etc., etc., etc.? And how does that flow on during the game? Do you take that into how you might talk to them during the game or make decisions in relation to their behaviour during the game? I know you touched on that earlier, but just generally, how do you get to know players and get to know the behaviour and how you might treat that behaviour during a game?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That's a great question. I do think everyone is different. Every player is different no matter who they are. So upon getting our appointments 2 weeks before a match, we will do some research. We look at the teams. By then, we would have watched plenty of football. We know who's playing in what team. We keep up with transfers. You know, we keep up with players, and we do our research on them. The luxury about having such a good panel is we're able to talk to other referees, whether it be at training or hopping on the phone and calling someone interstate and just having a chat. Everyone's always available to do that, and we do talk about players, and if anyone's had any problems with players, or you know, who was someone that was able to bring other players back in and really pull them into line, who was a peacekeeper on the team, and who really was able to work with you. So I think we always have that knowledge going into a game. And I do think it's good to have that knowledge, but going in with a preconceived idea of how someone's going to act is always going to catch you off guard, and it's not always a good thing. You don't know what people are going through in their day-to-day. You don't know what's going on, so you don't know how someone's going to react on a certain day. So you kind of do have to take it as for face value. And I guess building rapport with the players as well is something that over time you learn, and something that is created. You don't have that instantly. You do have to build relationships with players as well. You need to learn what their tics are. Certain people like to be told that they're the best player on the field, and you know, their other teammate, you know, is rubbish or whatever, and you know, they're the best player, and other people just want to be heard. They just want to have their opinion sounded to you, and you acknowledge their opinion, and then that's it. So I think everyone is different, and I guess, yeah, we do our research, but going in with preconceived ideas that isn't always too good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your question, Jim. Before I go to the chat, because we've had quite a few come through, both directly to me and sent to everyone. Jared Abood, I saw you turn your camera on there, mate. Did you want to ask a question before I go to the chat?
Thanks, mate. Can you hear me?
Yeah, mate, all good.
Yep. Sorry, new system tonight. Brad, thanks for the chat. You've been great, actually. Now, I apologise if I came in a little bit late, so if you've covered this off, I apologise. But just wondering, you're doing AR stuff and other refereeing stuff at the moment. Is there a pathway, or what is the pathway to doing, say, video work? Is that for sort of older referees who've shit knees, or is it for guys who specifically go towards the VAR?
In terms of video, if your game's recorded, you can do any kind of feedback. Is that what you're leading
No, I
to?
think it's more towards the VAR.
Oh, towards
talk
VAR.
about the pathway. Yeah, the pathway towards the VAR.
Oh, pathway to VAR.
Yep.
In terms of becoming a VAR. So I think the criteria is to have officiated previously, or I think currently officiating on the panel. So I think to be an ALeague VAR, you need to have officiated at that level or above. So I think that is for top level people. You need to have your current accreditations. Everything needs to be up to date. You need to be your level 1, or if you're at a tournament, you need to be FIFA, etc. And there is also a separate VAR course as well. There's VAR workshops. There's a lot of training that really goes into it as well. So being a referee and being a VAR is one and the same, but completely different. There is a different pathway for that, yes. And not everyone can do it. Some people that are brilliant on the field aren't always great looking back at the VAR screens and deciding, making decisions. Not everyone can do that. And I think being on the pitch and being behind a screen is completely different.
Excellent. Thanks for the question, Jared. All right, we're going to go to the chat here, Brad. And there's probably 5. There's 2 questions that are very similar, but there's multiple questions. So the first question here is from Matt Broadbent that says, do you do any jokes on the communication gear, or is it all serious? And a second question is, and who is a prankster in the change room, if any? I
think you've got to have a laugh on the comms gear. If you're super uptight and you're serious the whole time, I don't think that works. So there's definitely always someone cracking jokes. We're all good friends as officiating together. So I think naturally you're always going to have a good fun time together. And I think that's part of the experience as well. I definitely think there's 1 or 2 pranksters. I think Alex King loves to have a good laugh when he's not stressed.
Doesn't he?
He's very good, but yeah, there's always a prankster in every crew. Just depends who you're working with.
Excellent, fantastic. A question from Jake Rose. Thank you for your question, Jake. He says, how many times do you watch and analyze every recorded match? And what exactly are you looking for aside from the key match incidents?
Thanks, Jake. That's great. I watch every single match that I've done, and more than once as well. The first time I watch it, I guess I'll kind of just be like, I'll get home from the match, or it'll be the day after, and I'm like, you're a bit worried about a few decisions or whatever, so you've got a few mentally noted down. So you'll quickly scroll to those and check your decisions and make sure what you were feeling at the time, and checking your decisions if you got it right, if you got it wrong, if that matched what you were feeling at the time. And then once you've kind of checked those decisions, you just go back, and I like to watch the game like as a whole. I think apart from your decisions, there's a lot that you can take from the referee's decisions or the other assistant referee's decision. Even sometimes you can get stuff from what the commentators say, So I think I watch it multiple times, and then once I get my feedback as well from our coach, I will then go and look at those points as well, and have a conversation with them about it. So yeah, definitely more than once each game.
Excellent, fantastic. Now, this is a bit of well, depends how you look at it. A bit of a tougher question, and Ali Bajwa and the Anderson family have both asked the same question, pretty much. What was the most memorable mistake that you've ever made, and in particular, how did you deal with that?
Most memorable mistake. Look, I think every mistake kind of plays an impact on you. I think I'm fortunate enough not to have something that has completely blown up a game in terms of A-League at the moment. So I think I've been quite lucky. But I did have a game where I got multiple decisions wrong in that one game. And I come off the game thinking I had an absolute blinder. And it wasn't until I got the phone call from the coach saying, oh, look, we thought you had a great game, but we've checked the footage and you've actually made, multiple errors in things that you shouldn't have made a mistake from. So I guess overconfidence was something that got me in that match. Being a little too trigger happy with the flag, but I think not keeping concentrated was the thing that threw me out. And that really, thinking that I nailed the game and coming home and getting on the phone with the coach and going, oh, hold on, I've really stuffed this. I think that really plays on you to be so confident in the moment, and then to look back and go, oh, wow, why did I get this wrong? And then it's working out why you did get it wrong, and working on those things, and noting those down. And one of the things that I've heard is setting a date to write it off. So having the game on the weekend and then having a few days to process it, and then by the Thursday of that week, that's it, no more. You don't think about it. Emotionally, that's gone. Mentally, that's gone. You just write it off and move on to the next game. And I think you need to find ways to deal with making errors. But I think that's probably one of the hardest challenges we have as referees. It's not outside pressure, it's internal pressure from ourselves.
Yeah, excellent. Andy Castellano has said that you mentioned earlier that you were top ranked at some of the tournaments earlier in your career. What do you think were the things that made you get noticed, and that made you stand out against the other referees?
Without a doubt, I think this comes down to 1%ers. Every referee that goes to a tournament is going to be relatively around the same level. It definitely comes up to 1%ers. What you're doing better than everyone else, what you are doing that others aren't. Knowing your laws is probably the biggest one. You know, if you're at a tournament and they're doing a laws of the game test, you know, people that do get more marks stand out to people who are not getting good marks. If they are ranking you, and you've done everything the same as another referee, how do they split you? They go, okay, cool. We'll look at, you know, laws of the game quiz. Oh, they got one more, you know, right than the other. They know their laws better, you know. It's definitely the 1%ers doing everything in your power, to have the best outcome for you, creating your own luck.
Yeah, excellent. And I'll just one question that's just come through about the tournament there. Matt Broadbent sent another question, and thank you, Matt, for your question. Did anyone at those tournaments get confused between you and your brother?
Every tournament, absolutely every tournament. I think that was also something that really worked in my favor. That's unique for me is I'm an identical twin. As I've mentioned, my brother has come through refereeing the whole time. So I think that's something that always has been in my favor. There's been two of us. We've been everywhere. I could be refereeing a team one week, Cameron referees them the next week, and that's, you know, they go, oh, we had you last week, you know, and so they remember the face. And I think we did referee quite similar. So I think that's something that really, really helped me. But yeah, definitely everyone got confused. And if you didn't get confused, you're lying.
Yeah, definitely. I still get confused to this day. I have to check for the distinguishing features between them. Diana Mob says, do you work or study outside of refereeing, and what do you do? And how do you find the balance between refereeing and that work-life balance?
So I do work and study outside of refereeing. I work casually in a furniture warehouse, and I study civil engineering at Western Sydney. I have been for quite a while now, quite a few years. But I think it comes down to managing your priorities and really what are your goals and what's your priority at the time. I think I've got a great example in the fact that Cameron and I both came through the same pathway at the same time, doing the same things. We both had the same job. We both study engineering as well. And for me, I went refereeing is my priority. So I put all my energy into refereeing, and I made uni work around my refereeing, and I made work around my uni. Whereas Cameron focused more on his university. University meant a little bit more to him than refereeing did. So that was something he focused on, and he made that a priority. And I think I think it comes down to really what's your priority and can you make it work? If I didn't enjoy refereeing, it wouldn't have been my priority. So yeah, I think it comes down to really what do you want most?
Yeah, excellent answers.
Yeah, just to add on that as well, sacrifices do have to be made along the way, and you can't think that everything's going to be perfect. You know, at some stage you do need to step back from one thing.
Yeah, that's That's very true. Jamie Sereno, I hope I pronounced that surname question, has asked, and I thank you for your question. What do you think is the most vital aspect of succeeding in your refereeing? For example, aspects such as man management or positioning, and we touched on this a little bit before, what set you apart, but are there maybe a couple of key points that you really think should be focused on, or is it a bigger picture as a whole?
I definitely think that every aspect of refereeing is super important. And if you have one side that you're lacking, it's always going to let you down a bit. But I do think one of the most crucial things is definitely knowledge of the laws of the game. Knowing your laws and getting your decisions right, or being able to sell your decisions, is probably one of the biggest things, and having the confidence to make those decisions. I think everything is related to one another. So knowing the laws of the game and positioning both go hand in hand. If you're not in the right position, how can you get the right call if you can't see what's going on? You may know the laws, but you can't get that decision. And I think as well, if you don't know your laws, you're in the right position, but you're getting it wrong. That doesn't help either. So I definitely think that there is like multiple key aspects to it. And I think man management is crucial as well. As you get older, I think, younger kids, you don't need that man management as much. But I do think once you do get to the older groups, having the man management, being able to talk to players, to explain decisions, just being a human being and having a bit of personality as well is massive. So there's more than one important aspect, definitely.
Excellent. And I've got two final questions from Matt Broadbent again here, who's obviously a big idol of yours. He's asking so many questions, and thank you, Matt, for participating tonight. First question is, have you heard anything from the crowd that was actually funny, maybe banter related, directed to you?
Well, I do have one that'll always stick with me. I don't know if it was funny or not, but it'll always stick with me. It was my first senior match on the line as a young 14-year-old assistant referee. If you don't know, I'm a very short person. And when I was 14, I definitely didn't look 14. My very first game, I'm on the line, walking past the crowd, and all of a sudden a draft came in, and it was this really awful smell. And one of the spectators called out, "Oh, the linesman hasn't changed his nappy. He's got a dirty nappy." And I guess that's something that's always stuck in me. You always remember the funny ones, I guess. We'll call it funny.
That's me.
Yeah, there's a few good ones that I can't repeat.
Fair enough.
Public forum, definitely not. But if you see me in person, I'll give you a few. But I guess I reckon you hear the crowd more at local, so they're the ones that stick with you. I guess once you get to bigger stadiums and bigger crowds, it becomes a bit of white noise, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And one final one, and I suppose this is something very big in the professional game today, and just in life in general. So, obviously there's a lot of media coverage on the ALeague. Obviously it's, the national level. So the question is, with all the social media content and news reports that go on about the ALeague and, even the match officials sometimes, do you ever scroll through the pages to see what they're saying about you or maybe your colleagues, or do you try and steer clear of that?
I'm glad this question's been asked, actually. This is something that's massive, and I don't think it has been bigger than it is today. I think social media is horrible. You've seen it in the NRL, the abuse that referees do cop, and I think steering clear of social media is massive. I think mentally, it has a massive impact. You're only going, what people are going to say, and I think if you're scrolling, you're only looking for things that are going to be there, and it's never positive. People are safe behind their keyboards, and they'll say whatever they want, because there are no consequences. And until there are consequences, people will continue to say what they want, and it doesn't matter how you perform, whether you got the decision right or not, or how qualified this person is. Joe Blow at home, who's never watched a football game in his life, happens to turn it over and then comment on a social media post. I think it's just best to steer clear. It's a win for no one.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, everyone here tonight, I hope you've really got an insight into a bit more about what it's like at the top level, and some things that we can all aspire to throughout all our various refereeing career, whether it's just starting or whether it's towards the end. Brad, on behalf of myself and all our guests here tonight and Hills Football, thank you for joining us tonight and giving up your Monday evening. It really is greatly appreciated. We look forward to seeing you on the telly soon. Hopefully we can get our season underway in relatively normal fashion, albeit in a COVID normal. Before you go, I will ask one final question from none other than the twin himself, Mr. Cameron Wright. What do you think your friends think of you being a referee?
Yeah, look, some of my friends couldn't care less, to be honest. Some of my friends have been very supportive. No one likes a referee at the end of the day, but people that have been around football do really appreciate the grandeur of it all, I guess. I had plenty of mates that have been really supportive, and they were always asking to come to games and to support me and stuff. There's a story of I had a mate behind me, calling out, with a beer in his hand, asking if I wanted some. I looked thirsty on the line, I think it's always good to have a really good support network around you, and I think family and friends have been great. So,
no, that's excellent. Well, we'll draw an end to our session tonight. We won't ask any more questions. And again, thank you for giving up your time, Brad. For everyone here, please keep an eye on our socials. Please keep an eye on your emails. We do have our next episode of our series next week, same time on Monday. Our special guest is going to be it's going to be a different approach next week. We're going to have a A-League referee coach join us and give us his insight into his career, because obviously it's going to be drastically different to what Brad's was. And that is New South Wales Referee Education Coordinator, Rob Newenhouse. So that will be one to tune into as well. As I said, details on our socials and email tomorrow. Brad, you've been a great guest. Thank you for indulging us. All the best. And hopefully once lockdown's over, mate, I look forward to catching up and having a beer.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story and talk a bit. So thanks very much.
No worries. Thank you all and good evening.